So, the other day, I was telling a friend about a course that I give on effective communication from the stage and also in everyday life. And they said, you should do a Success Saturday about effective communication. And I thought, okay, she's right. So, let's talk about becoming scintillating conversationalists. Being a great conversationalist is important, if not essential to success, be it in your business, your social life, or even meeting a potential love interest. And I'm going to tell you the tricks of the conversationalist trade so that you can communicate with confidence and a bit of flair in the boardroom with potential clients at the next party that we hope to get invited back to. But I have a disclaimer. You can be a brilliant and confident conversationalist, but that doesn't mean you'll get the results you want every time, because the result often has nothing to do with you. And here's why. If you're talking to someone and they seem completely uninterested, or they excuse themselves in the middle of a sentence, or you know what I'm talking about. And your spontaneous reaction is your self-esteem goes down the tubes and you have the thought, I'm not good enough. I'm not important. I want to go crawl in a hole. Please cancel those thoughts and replace them with, I send my love to that person. Or even do a few quick ho'oponoponos, because that reaction has nothing to do with you. My friend and co-founder of the Lefko Institute, Shelley Lefko, teaches people how to get rid of their beliefs about reality, because what we see is not usually reality at all. She says that we somehow started believing as a child, because of a childhood experience, quote, I'm not important, or I'm not good enough. And then something like that happens and we default to our childhood belief. Maybe the person just had to go to the bathroom, or maybe they have an anxiety disorder and it was starting to kick in and they wanted to leave before it got exacerbated. Or maybe their belief is that they aren't important and it was so extreme at that moment that they had to go talk to someone who was going to stoke their ego. But our belief about not being good enough was nonetheless ignited. Or maybe you subconsciously remind them of their ex, or 1,001 other things could be at play. So don't mistake the reaction and give it meaning. So now we're going to move away from the philosophical and get to the practical of everyday communication. First, you need to be clear about the intent of any communication, which is always 100% of the time to give. If it's to receive or to get something, and the intent that the other person has is to get something, then nobody gives and nobody will receive. If you give, the law of reciprocity says that you will receive. Maybe not from that person, but you will get back. People say, well, what about if you're in sales and you want to make a sale? Well, of course you want to make the sale, but again, your intent is for the other person to receive the tremendous benefit from your product, not just to make a sale. It's a completely different energy. If you don't believe there's tremendous benefit, you might not want to be selling it. You have to believe with every fiber of your being that what you're offering will benefit the buyer far beyond the amount you're making in the sale. Again, your intent is to give, in this case, to give benefit, not to make a sale. Big energetic difference. And as I teach in my Yes to Success classes, we always say thank you to the universe for everything. If someone says yes when we're trying to make a sale, we say thank you to the God of our understanding in our hearts. And if someone says no, we say thank you to the God of our understanding in our hearts, because we know that rejection is God's protection. We know that when we ask for something, the universe will only give us one of three answers. The first is, yes, here it is. The second is, not yet, be patient. And the third is, I love you too much to give you that. There's something better on its way. And when we give thanks, the better will make its way to you much more quickly. Also, in everyday communication, don't judge, because the most objectionable looking character can end up being the person who changes your life. Unfortunately, we're all programmed to judge people. We all succumb to some degree of racism, classism, sexism, ageism, weightism, nationalism. So, my number one rule for every interaction is treat everyone as the most important person in the world, because you never know. How many of you have ever been in a conversation that went like this? Like, you're saying something that you think is really important, and the person's like looking around the room to see if there's somebody more important than you to speak to. I remember in the early 1980s, I did one of my Yes to Success seminars, and at the end, this adorable little girl comes up to me, and she was all bouncy and so excited, and she said that she wanted to work for me. Well, there were a lot of people in the room who wanted to talk to me because the seminar had just ended, but I didn't look around the room to see if there's somebody more important than her. I gave her 100% of my attention, and I listened to everything she had to say. And that adorable little college student turned out to be Marcy Shimoff, who went on to become one of the top female nonfiction authors in the world, with, I don't know, I think she had 5 books on the New York Times bestseller list at once, because she wrote all of the chicken soup books and the woman's soul, chicken soup for the woman's soul, chicken soup for the mother's soul, chicken soup for the couple's soul. You get the picture. But I gave her my full attention. I didn't know she was going to go on to become one of the number 1 authors in the world. But when she did, and the people at Chicken Soup asked her to write Chicken Soup for the American Idol soul, she was under contract for another book, another wonderful book of hers called Happy for No Reason. And they asked if she knew somebody else who could write the book. And she said, I absolutely do. And I was handed a best-selling book to write. I'll give you another example. When my kids were little, I had a babysitter, and that babysitter, when she came for her interview, she showed up at my door with jet black hair. And then when I had the second interview with her a couple of days later, in hot pants and rollerblades. And the couple of days later, when I had another interview with her, she had white blonde hair. But I loved her, and I listened to her, and I gave her my full attention, and then I loved her, and treated her as the most important person in the world. She became part of the family. And years later, probably a decade later, she and her husband started one of the top event planning companies in the country. They have clients like Geico and Mary Kay and anyway, you get the picture. And when I took my break from speaking full time, and I became a full-time mom at home, and then I came back to the speaking world, who do you think gave me my first speaking gig? And more importantly, when you treat the person in front of you as the most important person in the world, not just you don't know who they are and what could happen in the future, but you're doing God's work. And if you do God's work on earth, she will do yours. You think you're in charge of making the contact with the it person in the room? No, you treat the person standing in front of you as the it person in the room, and God will take care of bringing you the best contact. I love the quote from Mahatma Gandhi who said, if you can't see God in the next person you meet, you need look no further. Anyway, so there you are at a party or a networking event, and there is somebody standing alone by the hors d'oeuvre table. You can go do God's work for him, her. And how do you start the conversation? Well, you start with, first of all, start with a confident posture. Even if you don't feel confident, remember your body informs your heart and mind. I teach people in my public speaking classes that if you're afraid, walk out on the stage with your head high and confidence in your step, and your mind will think that you're confident, and smile. Very few people are not disarmed when you smile. And compliments are a great way to open up the conversation. I love your shirt. I love when people point out that they love my shoes or they love my purse. They say they love my purse. I can launch into a story about how one of my adopted sons got me that purse for my birthday and how proud he was to give me a Coach bag for my birthday. And then we're off and running. Just make sure that the compliment is sincere and genuine, needless to say, but you can find something to compliment anybody about. And then if someone sees it as disingenuous, that has nothing to do with you. Maybe it's just hard for them to handle someone being so nice to them when they don't love themselves, or they are just not trusting types of people. My first spiritual teacher, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, used to say, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. Okay, so if you're not trusting, somebody gives you a sincere compliment, you suspect it. It's nothing to do with that person. And we give compliments simply because we see goodness in something and we just want to spread the love. As long as you keep your compliments real, there's no reason not to give them. The only reason people don't give compliments or point out what they see as truthful about you is because they're afraid their love or kindness will be rejected or not reciprocated. But that's not the point. The point is that we give because it's our nature to give. And if someone sees an ulterior motive, it's usually because that's what they do. If they didn't, they wouldn't see it in you. I'm going to tell you another really quick story. This is a story. I was actually on a tour with a group of people, a group of friends, and we were in Israel. And this was several years ago. And you know how I am. I kind of like people and I look for the good and I compliment and I just do that. I never think about it. It's just what I do. And somebody on the tour, somebody who knew me, said to me, you know, I've been watching you and you're always so nice to everybody and you're always giving them compliments. And I think you do it because you want something from them. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe I do. Let me think about it. And I said, you know what I'm going to do for the next 48 hours, I am going to think about my motive before I give somebody a compliment or before I'm nice to somebody. And I'm going to see, you know, what's going on with me, because I wanted to see, maybe she was right. So the next 48 hours, which were the most torturous 48 hours of my life, because I'd see somebody who had like a really cool hat and I want to say, oh my God, I love the hat. Or somebody that we had some speakers and I wanted to go up and tell the speaker, oh my God, you were incredible. But I was having my 48-hour compliment and niceness fast. And finally, the morning arrived that I could start being myself again. And I went on to breakfast and there was a woman there. And I said to her, oh my gosh, I love your necklace. And it was this beautiful olive wood carved necklace. It's just gorgeous. And she goes like this and she takes off and she handed it to me. And she said, this morning when I was getting ready, the voice of God said to me, somebody is going to compliment your necklace this morning. Give it to her. Got it? So no disingenuous flattery, but there is no reason not to make somebody's day. A sincere compliment might just save someone from having a bad day or from having a bad life. So I think that should do it for now. Hope you enjoyed this Success Saturday, and I'll see you next week. Oh, and by the way, I think you rock. Bye for now.